Good morning, folks. Welcome to a possibly final update on Tropical Cyclone Errol. Today's update is brought to you by townsvillesheds.com. Today is Good Friday, the 18th of the 4th, 2025. Alrighty, where are we? Well, the cyclone was looking very healthy yesterday morning. It started moving eastwards just after our update, and then, it all went downhill from there. Look at that. Tried to re-intensify a touch overnight. There it is there. See how it tried to develop some deeper convection there at around about 8 o'clock at night, and it failed miserably. And you can see all that deep convection's been sheared away to the east. Some nice storms going on through some of the Browse Islands and some nice convective activity coming onto the coast. Our cyclone is languishing way back to the west here with no deep convection. If we take a look at the latest satellite imagery, we can see there's a little bit of rotation going on at the surface. You can barely make it out, but it's just there. It's tracking basically east-southeast, but it's well behind all the deep convection. And that's what I meant when I said the actual system itself crossing the coast is a letdown. So don't focus on the system, focus on the good bits out here. Rightio, so the system's expected to make contact with land probably around about mid-afternoon this afternoon, although when it does get decoupled like that, it's always a little tricky to pick exactly what time the system comes onto the coast, but it has accelerated to some degree in the last 24 hours, and so therefore, rather than tonight, we're going to see the crossing sometime later today, so sometime just after lunch through to mid to late afternoon, it'd be most likely my guess. Once again, the system coming onto the coast is definitely an anticlimax, but it is producing. Remember, there is still good production of wind very close to that low-level circulation centre. Sure, we're not getting the big rain around the circulation centre, but we're still getting significant winds. And when we zoom into there, the top of King Sound there, we can see that the wind speeds are still going to be right up there. And it is important that we don't just suggest that this is all done and dusted. There is certainly still some wind about the low-level circulation today. It won't be quite this intense, but there will be some winds getting up to around Category 1 intensity. And you can see there with the cyclone passing right on the northern edge of the Dampier, you'll notice there that King Sound does get a little bit of a northerly to northeasterly, and we do see just a hint there of a bit of funneling going on at the northern edge of it. For Derby, a bit of a stiff breeze for you. It might get a little bit stronger than a stiff breeze as we get into mid-afternoon, and then later in the afternoon, or more likely the evening, things will settle down very, very quickly once the system pushes through. But we're probably not expecting Category 1 winds over Derby. If we do, they'll be marginal and they'll be only for a very brief period. I think the Euro model's probably summing it up much better, and you can see there that the wind field is much more likely to be looking more like this than the tight system that the HAFS model has got us believing it is. You can see there that the system is still packing winds up around 50 to 60 knots, wind gusts at least up around 50 to 60 knots on that eastern side, and you can see the elongated nature of it. So you can see at 11 a.m. you could have a low-level circulation centre that extends all the way east and making landfall already by 11 a.m. But the more likely solution is that the centre of the centre isn't going to get through until about mid-afternoon. And there it is there, and you can see that the system is packing a bit of a fresh breeze for Derby, bit of a fresh breeze for Broome, but we're not seeing any significant wind impacts from this system, I wouldn't imagine, unless you happen to be in this area where there may be a little bit of northerly funneling going on at the northern edge of King Sound. So from a cyclone impacts perspective, you are in cyclone warning. I don't want to downplay that, but don't expect a significant cyclone impact in the area. We're talking about a marginal cyclone impact, and marginal being the very much the operative word here. In my opinion, where we're going to see any cyclonic winds is where they're being topographically induced between water bodies and land bodies. So these areas in here do have a chance at seeing those Cat 1 conditions, maybe a little bit of acceleration on the leading edge here, sees the opportunity for Category 1 winds, and possibly in these little nooks and crannies in here, we're probably looking at the possibility of Category 1 winds. But outside of that, folks, I'm not seeing too much evidence of Category 1 winds away from those little areas. So that's our wind threat. Let's have a quick look at waves. So the biggest waves out of this thing, they're happening this morning, and they're happening just offshore off the northwestern edge of the Dampier. Once again, I do urge you to understand that there could be a little bit of funneling going on the eastern side, where those big waves could get funneled right into in these little nooks and crannies, and we don't have the resolution of the model to pick that up. But just be aware there that little 2.5 to 3 metre wave height could extend into and possibly be funneled into this little nook and cranny here at the northern edge of King Sound. Very sharp wave dispersal after that funneling effect, depending of course on exactly where the cyclone goes, but we expect it to be around the tip of the Dampier, so there will be a very sharp dispersal of those wave heights as we push into King Sound. But that's where our bigger waves are going to be today, and you'll notice they're quite significant wave heights extending further northwards up towards the Browse, the southern parts of the Browse Island. So you can see there that this is probably an area that will probably receive the biggest wave heights, and through the day today, around 2.5 to 3 metres is what we'd be expecting as significant wave heights. Obviously, max wave heights might be a little bit higher than that, but the significant wave heights around that 2.5 to 3 metre range on that northeastern side of the circulation, where we've got a little bit more flow onto the coastline. So there might be a little bit of above average tide levels on that exposed coastline on the northern side of the circulation. Absolutely no threat of storm surge for Broome, and assuming that the cyclone passes just north of Derby, we wouldn't be seeing any sort of storm surge threat for Derby, I wouldn't imagine. But it's always a little bit tricky here when it comes to storm surge modelling because of the shape of the coastline right around Derby, and the wrong cyclone hitting in the wrong spot can really enhance the northerly flow and that funneling of water through this very small little gap in here in between the landmass. So it's always a little bit tricky for King Sound. So thankfully not a hell of a lot of people live in Derby, but if we had a major city in here, this would create all sorts of problems for flood modelling. Alrighty, and lastly, let's have a look at rainfall. We can see quite clearly there, all the big rain is heading east of the circulation. You can see out there to the north and northeast of the circulation. Let's have a look at that once again on radar and satellite. You can certainly see that's where it's all happening, where the model's telling us it's going to happen, which is northeast and east-northeast of the circulation. Also east of the circulation in general. You can see some rain streaming down to Fitzroy. Notice Broome, absolutely bugger all there going on, isn't there? So let's have a look there at the modelling for the rest of the day today. We can see that we're getting those heavy falls of rain continuing on that eastern side of the circulation through the morning. Into the afternoon, the cyclone comes onto the coastline, but notice that all of the big rain is displaced to the east. See how all the big rain, so our cyclone, once again, let's have a look, where's our cyclone at the time? Our cyclone's back here. All of our big rain and even some of our biggest winds are where this convergence band is occurring to the east of the circulation. And that's really important. When they're not well put together, these things, they can produce those marginal Cat 1 winds, but it's where the deepest convection is when it's displaced from the centre. That's usually where our biggest winds are going to be, and they usually tend to coincide not necessarily with the circulation centre in this very poorly put together system, but where the deepest convection is east of the centre. So this is where we'd be looking out for our biggest winds as we push into the latter or mid to late parts of the afternoon. You can see our cyclone continues to flounder close to the coast around Derby. There's a few showers and maybe even a gusty storm or two to the south, and you'll see that when we talk about the Pilbara, we'll mention the possibility of the East Pilbara picking up something today. But the expectation at this stage is our heaviest falls of rain to the east of the circulation and possibly even slightly east-northeast. Now that's good news if you're looking for some rain between Derby and Fitzroy, because that pulls you into that eastern part of the circulation. So there's be some nice healthy falls in between Derby and Fitzroy there in that setup. and you can see they're continuing to see rainfall into the overnight early morning period. The system will eventually just sort of peter out across the Kimberley, and those rainfalls will decrease around and push east of Fitzroy more than likely. The system will not move over to Darwin, so we're not going to see any significant rainfall in Darwin, but the upper trough that's driving the rainfall, that's going to continue, and because the upper trough's just been given a little boost of tropical moisture due to the surface lobe from the cyclone, we're going to see some nice healthy totals across the northern interior as this pushes eastward, as the upper trough pushes eastwards. Alrighty, so that's the expectation from a rainfall perspective. Total accumulated precip, quite clearly some nice falls around the interior parts, great falls on that northwestern coastline. Don't forget, we got some fairly significant winds and rain activity today before this whole mess pushes eastwards, and you can see most of that rain and stormy mess is just to the north of Derby. There is still some shower and thunderstorm anticipated, activity anticipated for Derby. Broome, outside chance of a couple of gusty showers, and then the expectation of the East Pilbara getting involved in some of this rain activity through the next 6 to 12, possibly 24 hours through there as well. Alrighty, so that's where our rain is at, that's where our winds are at, that's where our waves are at. I'm pretty sure this will be our last forecast on this particular system. I'll check out how much weather it's producing in the morning and I'll make a decision then. Bureau of Meteorology's model going a little bit overboard in how much rain it's producing inland, but it makes sense. You've got those really heavy falls located to the north of Derby. Derby are picking up a few showers and storms, Broome picking up a gusty shower, and places around Derby to Fitzroy, just to the north of that point, you can see some very heavy falls, and they extend inland. And once again, the extension inland comes from the upper trough. The whole reason this mess has just died like it has been the upper level trough inducing all that wind shear over the system, and all that wind shear is driving all that cloud and rain and that storm activity to the east of the circulation, and that'll continue once it's being fed by the moisture long after the cyclone's dead. That'll continue to drive a bit of rain into the eastern interior here. You can see quite a few showers and thunderstorms up around the northern parts of the Kimberley as well. And last and certainly not least is the AI model. And what's the AI model telling us? Very similar to exactly what I've told you. So you can see this morning we've got all of our rain to the north of Derby, and then this afternoon we've got all of our rain to the north of Derby. Once again, checking out where the actual cyclone is, you can see tip of the Dampier, but all the rain well to the east of that point. There it is there. And then as we continue on, we can see that our rain pushes inland a fair way, right? And that's once again a byproduct of the cyclone weakening, but bringing down a lot of moisture and feeding that upper trough with a lot of moisture as we go into the overnight early morning period. Quickly, that upper trough pushes east. The cyclone itself just dies. There's no sign of the cyclone pushing east to Darwin, but the upper trough is going to continue pushing eastwards. And our dead cyclone basically just peters out and washes out through the Kimberley. And very similar rain prospects over the course of the next couple of days. You can see heavy falls of rain through the Kimberley region, particularly north of Derby, but there's still a little bit of opportunity for that area between Derby and Fitzroy to pick up a bit of rain. And then further eastwards, you can see an extension well east of heavier rainfall as well, feeding that upper trough. Alrighty, no point gibbering. Have a great day. You should be safe from this one. Just make sure you're not on the water up here in this area. And also just be aware of the area of effect on the northeastern side where all those deep convective cells are going on. There's going to be some pretty gusty winds in these convective cells, at least for the next 6 to 12 hours. Have a wonderful day. I'll see if I'll talk to you tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next time there's a cyclone threat, which mightn't be till next season. Have a good day.